Good morning, everyone. Hi. My name is Menachem Creditor. It's my honor to serve as scholar in residence for UJ Federation of New York. And every morning, Monday through Friday at 9 o'clock in the morning, we come to you with some blessing and some Torah, some learning, hopefully some inspiration. And today is a very, very beautiful day. It's a very important day. On the Jewish calendar, today is Yom HaAtzmaut. It is the day of Israel's independence, where around the world, and certainly in the state of Israel, we celebrate the birth of our homeland, the rebirth of our homeland in 1948. And so there's a lot to share. There's a lot of complicated celebration as we're doing it from our homes, but we are connected one to each other and all around the world, celebrating our home in Israel. So what I thought we might do is begin with words of blessing and then share a little bit of thought. So, here we go. Amazing. Oh my God, what an experience to share a blessing with 100 people every morning, or at least Lori, Nora, Howie from Plainview. I don't know if you know, I grew up in Plainview. Kim, it's good to see you. Dale, I saw you before. And Panina, I'm glad we found each other. Today is Wednesday. That's true. It is also Yom HaAtzmaut. Today is the celebration of Israel's independence. And there is something so sweet about that. It is, as the founding Prime Minister of Israel, David Ben-Gurion, called it, it was the first new holy day on the Jewish calendar in 2,000 years. What a recognition. It is certainly a complicated one for us to figure out, because what does a ritual day mean when it is so recently created, when we, some of the people alive today, thank God, remember that day? What does it mean to then call it holy? How do we see our relationship with a place, even our home? Now, if I were to talk about, our childhood home, someone's from Plainview who's here, there is something really, really powerful about my relationship with home. And it's always complicated. That's what home is. Home is a shelter. Home is where our emotions are at their most explosive. Home is where we yearn for. Home is where we, when we're adolescents, run from. And home in this moment of our lived experience is, well, everything. That's where we are. And thank God, I don't take that for granted. We're blessed to have these homes that we are confined to. So what does it mean then to have a mythic dimension of that, to have something that we would call holy? Now, for some people, the relationship with the state of Israel is a cultural one, a historical one. Certainly the founders of the Zionist movement in the late 1800s were dedicated towards a political place, a place of refuge, especially in the face of all the pogroms in Eastern Europe. But we had been in that land before, and so it wasn't only about going somewhere safe, it was about going home with all of those dimensions. In fact, In the Talmud, we're told, wherever you are in the world, if you pray as a Jew faces Israel. Well, if you're in the north of Israel, you face Jerusalem. If you're in Jerusalem, wherever you are, you face where the temple stood. And if you're where the temple stood, you face the Holy of Holies. In fact, if you go on the Kotel tunnel tours, the Western Wall tunnel tours, there is a plaque on one particular wall that says, this is the closest you can come without being on the Temple Mount itself. And it's an extraordinary experience. Look at everyone saying good morning to each other. That's an extraordinary experience. It is an extraordinary experience to stand in this part of the world. As Yehuda Halevi said, I think I might have quoted this yesterday, he said, here I am at the ends of the West, Libi b'Mizrach, but my heart is in the East. In this moment, especially Yom HaAtzmaut, when among the things that are in my mind's eye, what I truly see in front of me right now, is not all of your shining faces alone. It is also a picture that my brother-in-law posted and that my sister posted from Tel Aviv, holding their daughter, overlooking home, overlooking our beautiful state, our homeland. And so we celebrated together. I wanted to share two specific quotes. One of them is from Gershon Shalom, who was the scholar that basically created a modern study of Kabbalah and mysticism. And one of the things that really animated his life, not just his academic work, was a yearning for a reclaiming of the state. And he was a contemporary of Martin Buber and of Eliezer ben Yehuda, some of the great luminaries that created this, the greatest experiment in Jewish history, the state of Israel. What people like Rabbi Yitz Greenberg and Rabbi David Hartman call the Third Jewish Commonwealth. What a complicated and powerful way to describe a moment of human history. Gershom Shalom was on the founding faculty of the Hebrew University in Jerusalem and reflected a lot on the language itself, not only because studying Kabbalah gives you a glimpse into how mystics saw the power of letters and words to create and reshape reality, to bring us closer to the divine, but also what Hebrew represented in a Jewish consciousness. So he has this phrase, the land is a volcano, and it hosts the language. I just want to say it again. The land is a volcano, and it hosts the language. Think about the power of language, especially an ancient language that had no way of describing electricity per se, or a tank. Well, you might know that the word for electricity in modern Hebrew is chashmal. You might not know that that comes from the book of Ezekiel, a mystical vision of a biblical prophet, of some experience of God, of crackling energy. And that crackling energy, in the very first chapter of the book of Yechezkel, in Ezekiel, comes to describe crackling energy that we can utilize, which means when I flip the switch to turn on the light, I am activating power. The biblical dimension of the this worldly experience. What does that mean if you know all of that? What does that mean when you are called as an Israeli, a young Israeli, to defend your home, to defend our people, and you sit in a tank? Because for a time, the tanks that were utilized by the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, were called Merkava. Merkava also comes in the book of Ezekiel and means chariot, God's chariot. What does it mean to have a this worldly experience of God's power? And ultimately what I would hope for is for us to be mindful of the way language crackles. Remember what Shalom said, the land is a volcano and it hosts the language. If we could be mindful about the way we inhabit these this worldly dimensions of ancient ideas and powers, we might find ourselves being incredibly mindful in general about the power that we have in the world to do good. What an unbelievable opportunity and celebration of our home to think about the power of Hebrew, reclaiming our destiny, going home and transforming our consciousness to be a power for good in the world. So that if you sit in a Merkava, you say, I am wielding some of God's power. may I not use it to destroy. I am wielding some of God's power when I turn on the lights. The chashmal is in my hands. The Merkava is in my hands. The turning of our history so that we can claim it, we can do something good with it, so that we can be safe, of course. So, of course, there are many dimensions of this, and I want to share one more. One of my favorite living authors is Dara Horn. She has written incredible books, is a deep thinker, and has transformed my religious consciousness by her art. I recommend all of her books. My favorite is The World to Come. She tells a story about how at the age of 32 she went to a conference, and it was a conference in Israel, and she was given an earpiece because she wasn't a native Hebrew speaker, and the presumption was she would need translation. And she decided not to use it. That was her test. And she talks about her relationship with the language. At the conference, where she was brave enough to take the earpiece out to hear Hebrew, her own language, her heart's language, even if it wasn't the language of her birth, it was the language of her soul. And she talks about how Aaron Appelfeld, who was a native German speaker, survived the Shoah. He spoke at this conference. And I'm just going to read what Dara Horn wrote about this experience. That evening, Appelfeld, who rarely discusses his personal experience, he's died since, told us something quite intimate. When he arrived in Israel, he said, he worked on a kibbutz each day and then returned to a small room each night where he had a notebook and a pen. And there he began to write down the names of each murdered person in his family. Not in German, but in the Hebrew he had just begun learning, settling these forgotten people's names into the ancient letters. And there, he told us, he had them forever, in Hebrew, his. Dara says, I listened to him as he spoke, in Hebrew. Of course, there are ragged dimensions to what it means to think about Jewish history, to stand in this moment of history, to see the state of Israel in a context that includes the Shoah. But for us to remember the profound impact that we can have through the land, not only as a response to those who would have destroyed us, but as an affirmative statement of, here I am, Hineni. As an entire people in this world, since 1948, we can once again say, Hinenu, we are here, we are ready, we are joyful, we are alive. So my friends, Am Yisrael Chai, we are alive. And today we celebrate our home. May our hearts lean east. May our minds be activated, our souls be alive. And may we one day, very soon, be free again to go home. It's good to be home, in our homes. It'll be really great to come together in our shared home. So let's sing our way out. See you tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. Ya la 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 la, diddy ya la la la, diddy ya la la la, ay ya la la la. Ya la 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 la, diddy ya la la la, diddy ya la la la, ay ya la la la. All right, friends, see you soon. Have a good day. Boker Tov.